Hey, what's up there, YouTube? What's going on, all the roulette players? Welcome back to Casino Wars, where we will test out every system for 1 hour. Yesterday was Fibonacci Day. Not sure if you knew that. So I'm in honor of Fibonacci Day. I am going to place the bets, and we're going to play Fibonacci. So what we're going to do is we're going to play 1 dozen. And we are going to play the longest since it's hit. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a $10 bet on, let's see, not the first, not the second, but the last. That was the longest one since it hit. So let's go ahead and spin. All right, that's a 10 black. So that is a loss. So with Fibonacci, we just rebet and spin. It's because 10 plus 0 is 10. Then now 10. All right, that's another loss. So now we do 10 plus 10 equals 20 and spin. That's a 30 red. So that's finally our first win. So now we're going to go back to 10, and the longest since it's hit was the middle column. So we're going to go ahead and bet 10 on the middle column. We're up 20 now. That's a 31 black. That is a loss. So we're just going to rebet with Fibonacci and spin because 10 plus 0 is 10. It's always the last two added up, so that's 19. So that is a win. All right, so now we're going to switch bets, and we're going to go with the longest since it's hit, and that will be the first column. So we're going to put 10 on the first column. Now we're up 30 units, $30. That's a 17 black. That's a middle, so that's a loss. So with Fibonacci, we're just going to rebet and spin. That's a 4, that's a win. So we got the win. So now we're going to go back to the longest since it's hit, which would be the last column. So we're going to put 10 on that column and spin. That's a 13 black. All right, that's a middle column. That's no good. So we're going to rebet and spin with Fibonacci. That's a 34 red. That's a win. All right, so now the longest since it's hit was the first column. So we're going to put 10 on the first column and spin. That's a 25 red. That's a loss. So we're just going to, with Fibonacci, just rebet and spin. That is a 15 black. That's a loss. So what we're going to do is we're just going to rebet, and we're going to add 1 because 10 plus 10 is 20. So we're going to put 20 and spin. That's a 10 black. That's a win. All right. We're just taking the wins. We're good. All right. So now what we're going to do is the longest since it's hit was the 10. The middle, so the longest since it's hit was the last third, 12. So we're going to rebet and spin with that. Up $70 now. That's an 8 black. That is a loss. So we're just going to rebet and spin with the Fibonacci. That's a 14 red. That's a loss. So we're just going to rebet. And this one we're going to double and spin. It's a 29. I believe that's a win. All right. All right. So now the longest since it hit is the first 12. So let's go ahead and reset and spin. That's a 3 red. That is a win. We will take it. So now we're gonna take the longest since it's hit, which was the middle column, and spin. That's a 35 black. That is a loss. So with the Fibonacci, just rebet and spin on the first. 0 plus 10 is 10. All right, that's an 18. That's a good one. We'll take it. All right, so now we're going to go back, and the longest since it's hit was the first 12 and spin. So far, this is going very well, but the longer you play, the more you can lose. All right, that's 26. So right now, you should be thinking about making your exit. All right, so we got a 26. That's a loss. So what we're going to do is with the Fibonacci, we're just going to rebet and spin. So you should be thinking, okay, let's, $100 would be a good way to go. But we're going to play the full hour. All right, now we made the win, so that was good. All right, so now the longest since it's hit was the middle column, the middle second 12. So let's go ahead and spin. That's a 5 red. That is a miss. So with the Fibonacci, just rebet and spin the first time. That's a 23 red. All right, we got the win. All right, so now the longest since it's hit now is the last 12. So let's go ahead and spin on the third 12. That's a 16 red. That is a loss. So we're just going to rebet and spin. So it's always the last two. You add the last two spins up and add them up. All right, that's a 26 black. That's a win. All right, so now the longest since his hit was 26, 16. So the longest since his hit is the first 12 and spin. All right. What I like about the Fibonacci is when you win, you recover all. But also what I like about the Fibonacci is you get to play $10 twice. So that gives you a little more ammo to more spins. And that's a win. That's exactly why I like it. All right, that's a $20 win. So now we're going to the longest one since it's hit was the middle column. And that's the second 12. I keep saying middle column. I apologize. The column is the sides. All right, the middle, the second 12. That's a 1. That is a miss, but that's okay because we're just going to rebet the same amount and spin. This is what I like about the Fibonacci. You play twice on the $10, and then you start increasing. That is a loss. But, all right, now we're only going to increase to the two units, and this is what I love about this system. And then when we do win, if we win, we recover everything. So now it's 20 plus 10, so it will be 30. And we don't move the bet, the longest since it's hit, and spin. That's a 00. That's not good for anyone. So now we played 30 and we played 20. So now it goes up to 50. But like I said, if we win, we recover everything. And all we need is a center number, and there it is. Nice. That's a $100 win. So now we go back to the longest since it's hit, which was the 20, the 33. So that would be the first 12. And spin. Now we're up $190 or 19 units. That's a 0. That is a loss, but we don't have to worry because we're only going to bet the 10 again and spin. All right, that's a 10 black. That's a win. So we got the win, and now we're up. We recovered, and we gained some more money. So let's clear that out. I apologize because we got to go to the longest since it's hit would be the third 12. So let's go ahead and spin on the third 12. Playing an hour on this is very risky and I don't recommend it, but I'm just showing you what we can accomplish here. So we had a loss, so we're just going to rebet and spin. And if we get this, we'll be up $10 more. And that's a loss though. All right, so we're gonna rebet, and this time we're gonna double it and spin, because we do 10 plus 10 equals 20. And that is a 14 red. All right, that's a loss. So we're gonna rebet, and we're gonna do 20 plus 10. So we're gonna do 30 this time and spin. That's a 36 red. That's a win, finally. That's a $60 win. So now we're going to go longest since it's hit was the 36 and the middle column. So the longest since it's hit was the first 12 and spin. See, now we're up $20 more than we were. That's what I love about the Fibonacci on the playing the dozens. Okay, that's a 23. That is a loss. So we're just going to rebet. And we're going to just rebet and spin. It is the first one. All right, that's a 36. That is another loss, but that's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to rebet, and we're going to double it and spin. This is a $2,000 bankroll system. That's a 10, black. All right, that's a win. All right, so now we're going to go back to the base, and we're going to go to the longest one since it's hit, which was the middle column, and spin. That's a 23 red. That's a win. All right, just keep in mind, man, this is a system that you want to get out early if you can. Take your winnings and go. Just small increments, you know, you win $50 at a time. It's good. You could always come back. So the longest one since it's hit is the third, 12. So we're going to bet on that and spin. This is where you want to make like $50 and go away and then come back later and do it again, and then go away and do it again. And you'll make $150 a day or whatever, and just be happy with what you got. All right, that's a 27 red. So I forget what we were playing here. Let's just rebet. And let's look if we won. We won. So we're going to go back there if we can. All right, we're just going to rebet and spin, even though that's not the number we want to play. But let's just play it again and see what happens. That's a 4 black. All right, that's a loss. It would have been a loss either way. So we're going to put the longest since it's hit was besides the 4, because we weren't going to play that. So the 27, the 23, the 10. It would have been the 10, so we would have won. Okay, but we're just going to rebet and spin on the right number this time. That's an 11. That's a win. All right, good. All right, so now we're going to rebet. No, we're not going to rebet. We're going to play the longest since it's hit was the middle column. So the second 12 and spin. It's a 35 black. That's a loss. So we're going to rebet and spin. This is only the first one. That's an 8 black. That's a loss. So now we're going to rebet, and we're going to double it and spin. That's a 27 red. All right, that's a loss. So we're going to rebet $30 and spin. That's a 24 black. I think that's a win. It is. All right, great. All right, so we're going to rebet. No, we're not going to rebet. We are going to go back to $10 on the longest since it's hit, which would be 24, 27, which would be the first 12, and spin. You really want to get, ideally, you want to get the first one right here, 1, and you did. See, because that's the biggest win you get. You get 20 bucks and then you're up 20. All right, and now we're gonna go longest since it's hit was the third 12 now and spin. It would be a good time to walk away at this point, but you got the third 12, so that's an awesome win. So now the longest since it's hit would be the middle column. So rebet and spin. Well, not rebet, but bet the middle and spin. That's a 19 red. That's another win. Look at that. We'll take these first wins all day long. Okay, so the longest since it's hit now is the middle, then the 28. So will be the first 12 and spin. We'll take these all day long if they keep coming. That's an 8. That's another win. Look at that. All right, we're getting lucky. So don't think this happens all the time. So now the longest since it's hit was 8. 19 would be the third 12 now. And spin. All right, and we're up 390. That's a 4 black. That's a loss. All right, so we're gonna rebet and spin. We don't need to increase anything, just rebet and spin. That's a 4 black. That's another loss. That's two 4s in a row. Rebet. And we're gonna raise it to 20 and spin. That's an 18 red. That is a loss. So now we're gonna rebet. And now we're gonna go up. The last bet was 10 and 20, so we're gonna go to 30 and spin. Okay, that's not good for anyone. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go up to 50 because we add 20 and 30. 30 was our last, 20 was our last bet, and 30 was our last. 30 was our last bet, and 20 was the bet before that. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and spin. But we will recover everything when we do win. That's a 25 red. I believe that's a win. It is awesome. So now the longest since it's hit was 25. Zero doesn't count. 18. So the first 12 and spin. That's an 11 black. I believe that's a win. All right. We'll take wins all day long. Rebet. Nope. Not rebet, but we're going to go the longest since it's hit now is 25. So the middle column, second 12, and spin. Sorry, I said the second column again. I meant the second 12. That's a 17. That's a win. Nice. We're just getting good numbers. This doesn't typically happen, so you got to always try to walk when you're ahead. So, because my luck can change any minute when I'm trying to play for a whole hour. That's a 17 black. So 11 would have been before that. So the longest since it's hit is the third column, or the third dozen. Sorry, I said it again. That's a 9 red. That's a loss. So we're just going to rebet that and spin. That is a 34 red. That's a win. Thank you very much. So now we're going to go to the longest since it's hit would be 34, 9. So it would be the middle second 12. The second 12 and spin. Now you could do this with the column bets as well if you'd like. The column bets are a little more harder to figure out what column came in. So the longest since it's hit, because you got to look more. So I just do it the simple way. But you can play the columns if you want. That was a 15. I think that was a win, right? So That was a win. Yep. All right, so we're just gonna, well, in this case, we're just gonna take the rebet and spin because the thing keeps freezing up. It doesn't want to go back up. So that's a 19 though. We did do a good choice because it's another win, so that's good. But we do want to stick with the longest since it's hit. So that would be the 19, the 15, the 34. So the longest since it's hit will be the first 12. So let's go ahead and spin. Got to stick to a plan. If you're going to keep on, do it. And that's a win. Look at that. It helped us. All right, great. So the longest since it's hit now is 10, 19. So it would be the third 12. So let's go ahead and spin. This is definitely a good time to get the hell out. Don't mess with this, man, because it can go south really fast. But at least when you're this high, you can, when you see yourself going south, you can always adjust and say, you know what, it's time to stop. And just take that small loss. Not small loss, but you'll still get a win. But, you know, if you get down to 300, you took that $200 hit. But, all right, the longest since it's hit was 29, 10. So let's go with the second 12 and spin. But so far, this is a good hour. I'm doing very well. That's a 35 black. All right, so we're just going to rebet and spin on that one. That's a 3 red. All right, that's a loss. So now we're going to go 20 and spin. See, like now's a good time to think about it and say, hey, you know, if I lose this 20, I'm going to walk. See, there you go. You could walk at this point. Don't keep going like I'm going to do. So now we just played 20. So now we're going to put 30 and spin. I just hope my luck keeps going up, and I hope it keeps going. That's an 11. That is a loss, though. All right, so now we're going to do 50. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and spin. Hopefully we hit here, and then we'll be up again. That's a 36 red. That is a loss. So now we're going to go 50 plus 30 is 80. It just gets harder to keep track after you get to a certain part. But we did 50 and 80. 50 and 80 was our last bet. That's a loss. 50 plus 8, 80 is 130. And spin. So the next bet after this would be 130 plus 80. That's a 9. That is a loss. 130 plus 80. 310. Okay, let's rebet and spin. That's a 34 red. That's another loss. So now we got to take 180 plus 310, 490. So it'll be 490. 1, 2, 3, 4. 25, 25, 25. 80. 90. This is why you don't play for this long. Hopefully we get a middle number, and it's not. So that's not good. So 490, now it's 490 plus 380. Okay, so now it's $570. And I think I have enough in the bankroll to do this. 500, but you got to watch your table limits at this point because your table limits might put you over. So 570, 25, 50, 60, 70. All right, let's go ahead and spin. Your table limits might kill you on this. We need this win. Oh, ouch. So now we got to gamble 1,050. So we're going to go ahead and do it anyway, even if it goes over the bankroll, because if I go to the thing, I know it's going to not bring me back. So 1,000, 1,000, 25, 25, 1,050, and spin. Yeah, this would be over our bankroll, so if we lose this, we're done. That's a 4 black, and it is a loss. If you had like a $10,000 bankroll, let's see what would happen. All right, just to extend the video a little bit. So we had 1,050, and the bet before that was, so 1,000. But of course, the table limits probably won't let you do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 620. 10, 20. All right, and spin. All right, see what we come back with now. All right, that's a 15. We finally got a hit, and that is a $3,240 win. So with that, we go back to $10 on the longest since it's hit, which was the 15, the 33. So it would be the first 12, and let's go ahead and spin. So now we're up 1,040, but nobody's going to go that high, but I just wanted to show you what would happen if the table limits didn't stop you. That's the bottom line, the table limits, if they stop you. On a regular table, they probably won't stop you, but on an electronic machine, it probably would stop you. So that's also, keep that in mind, because that could hurt you too. So we got a 13. We played the first column, so we lost. So we're just going to rebet and spin. All right, we're going to play the full hour and just see what would happen. But this, remember, there are table limits, so you really need to keep that in mind. So now we're going to rebet, and we're going to double and spin. But definitely I wouldn't recommend keep going like this, even if the table limits are higher and you can bet this high. All right, that's a $40 win. So we're going to rebet. Oh no, we're not going to rebet. What we're going to do is take it back to $10, and we're going to put it on the longest since it's hit, which is the middle column, and spin. That's a 16 red. All right, that's a win. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bet on the longest since it's hit, which is the third 12, and spin. That's an 11 black. All right, that's a $10 loss. So we're just gonna rebet and spin. That's a 29 black. That is a win. So now the longest since it's hit was the middle column. So we're just going to go second 12. I said middle column again. I know, I apologize. Middle, the second 12. That's a 13. We got the second 12. Awesome. So now the longest since it's hit was the first 12. So let's go ahead and bet on the first 12 and spin. That's a 33 black. That's a loss. So we're just going to rebet and spin. That's a 19 red. All right, that's a $10 loss. So we're just going to rebet. And let's go ahead and, I think we got to increase that to 20 and spin. I think that was our second loss. It was, I think. I'm pretty sure. All right, that's a 35 black. That is a loss. So now we're going to go to 30 and spin. It's a 20 black. That's a loss. So we're going to go to 50. And spin. It's a 29 black. It's another loss. So we're going to go to 80. And spin. Hopefully you never have to go past 80. It's a 33 black. That's a loss. But as you can see, it does happen. So now we got 80 and 50. That's 130. 130. And spin. That's a 14 red. That is another loss. So now we do 130 plus 80. 210. So now we're going to go 210. 1, 2. And then $10. 210 and spin. Now see, you're up 780. You should walk away after this loss if you get one, but we got the win. All right, great. Now we just regained everything and now we're ahead again. Now's a great time to walk away, but we're going to continue for the full hour. So we're just going to rebet. Nope, we're not going to rebet. Sorry, we got to change that. Got to change that. And oh yeah, we've got to change that as well. All right, and we're going to go to the longest since it's hit, which was the third 12. So let's go ahead and spin. Now we're up 1200. That's a 25 red. That's a win. Nice. Nicely done. And now we're going to do the longest since it's hit. 25, 10. It will be the 14. So 10 on there and spin. Second 12. That's a 21 red. That's a win. All right. So the next one, the longest since it's hit, was 21, 25. So the first 12 and spin. That's a 16 red. So that's a loss. So we're just going to rebet and spin. That's a win. Thank you very much. So now we're going to go to the longest one since it's hit, which was the 25. So let's go ahead and spin. And that's an 11 black. All right, that's a loss. So we're just going to rebet. And we're going to double it, I think, and spin. That's a 23 red. That's a loss. So we're going to go to 30 now. And spin. That's a 25 red. So that's a win. So now we're going to rebet. Nope, we're not going to rebet. We're going to go back to the original 10 and go to 25. The 25, the 23. So it will be the first dozen. The first dozen or the first 12, whatever you want to say. Rebet and spin. That's a 24 red. That is a loss. So what we're going to do is we're just going to rebet that and spin. And that's a 29 black. So that's a miss. So we're going to, now we're going to rebet. And this time we're going to double it and spin. 22 black, that's a loss. So we're going to rebet. And I'm going to add another 30 and spin. That's a 32 red. It's another loss. So now we're going to go 50 and 30 and add the 30 and spin. I think I might have messed up before. That's a 21 red. That's a loss. 80 plus 50 plus 50. Spin. I think I messed up before, but that's all right. That's a 29 black. That is a loss. All right, so we're going to rebet, and we're going to add 80. The last one was 130, so spin. It's a 36 black, red. That's another loss. So now we're going to rebet. And now we're going to add 130. All right, I believe that's 310. Spin. But all you need is that one hit. There it is. Bam. All right, it's good, but you need unlimited money with no table limits. If you had unlimited money and no table limits, you could freaking play, but that's with any system. If you have unlimited money and unlimited table limits, yes, you can make a killing. So now we're going to go back to 10. 10 on the longest since it's hit, which was the middle column, and spin. That's a 33 black. All right, that's a miss. So we're going to rebet and spin. So it's the first miss. That's a 32 red. That's another miss. So now we're going to rebet, and we're going to double this one and spin. So the next one we'll do 20 plus 10. It's an 18. All right, that's a $40 win. That's good. So now we can go back to 10 on the longest since it's hit, which will be the first dozen, and spin. That's a 28 black. All right, that's a loss. So we're just going to rebet and spin with Fibonacci. That's a 5 red. I believe that's a win. Awesome. All right, so now we're going to change the bet from the longest since it's hit, which would be the middle 12, spin. That's a 2 black. That's no good. So we're going to rebet and spin. With the Fibonacci, we do not reset until we don't increase until the second, after the second loss. So that's a $20 win. That's good. So now we go to longest since it's hit would be the third 12 and spin. That's a 1 red. All right, that's a loss. So we're just going to rebet and spin on the first loss. The Fibonacci system is a great system. It's a great strategy. The Fibonacci is a great roulette strategy for people that want to play for a long period of time, but it's still not recommended to play this long. So we're on, all right, so we got to add 10 and spin. Yeah, we just went and add 10 and spin. That's a 28 black. I believe that's a win. Awesome. All right, so now we're going to go back to 10 on the longest since it's hit, which would be the first 12, and spin. That's a 7 red. I think that's a win. Awesome. So now the longest since it's hit is the middle column. So let's go ahead and spin. That's a 4 black. That's a loss. So we're just going to rebet and spin on that. That's a 3 red. All right, that's another loss. So we're going to rebet and we're going to add one this time and spin. That's a 22 black. That's a win. All right, so now we can go back to 10 on the longest one that's hit. So that would be 22, 3. So the longest one since it's hit, it's been a real hot minute, the third 12. So let's go ahead and spin on that. Hopefully we'll get a third 12 because it's been a long time. That's a 16 red. That's a miss though, but that's okay. We're only going to rebet and spin. We're not going to increase the bet. All right, that's a 36 red. That's a win. So now we go back to the longest since it's hit, which would be now the first 12, and spin. And that's a win. All right, we'll take win. All right, so the next one, the longest since it's hit, would be the middle column. So 10 on that and spin. The middle 12, sorry. 11, that's a loss. So we're just going to take our loss and we're just going to rebet and spin. That's a 24. That is a win. Awesome. So now we're going to take... Okay, so now we're going to take the longest since it's hit would be the 24, the 11, so it would be the third 12, and spin. That's a 9 red. That's a loss. That's okay. We're just going to rebet and spin. Guys, all right, and now we're going to take... Now we're going to rebet and we're going to double this one and spin. And that's a 16 red. That's a loss. So we're going to rebet and we're going to add a 10 and spin. Make it 30. That's a 28 black. I believe that's a win. Awesome. 160. All right, so now the longest since it's hit is 28, 16, so it would be the first 12 and spin. That's a 19 red. All right, that's a loss, so we're just going to rebet and spin. We're not going to do anything with that one. That's an 11 black. That's a win. All right, so now we're going to go back to the $10 on the longest since it's hit, which is 19 and the 28, so it'll be the third 12. Third 12 and spin. That's a 12 red. All right, so that's a 12 red, so that's going to be a loss. So we're just going to rebet and spin. It's only our first loss. That's a 6 black. All right, that's another loss. So we're going to rebet. And we're going to change this to 20 and spin. That's a 7 red. That's a loss. So now we're going to go to 30 and spin. All right, that's a 27. I believe that's a win. All right. So now we're going to go back to the longest since it's hit, which was the middle column, 10, and spin. All right, that's a 9 red. That's a just rebet and spin because that was a loss. That's a 36 red. That's another loss. So with the Fibonacci, we're going to go and we're going to put 10 and we're going to increase it to 20 this time and spin. That's a 1 red. That's another loss. So now with the Fibonacci, you add the 2 last numbers. So it would be 30. Rebet. That's 20 plus 10 is 30 and spin. That's a 0. That doesn't help anyone. All right, so now it's going to be 30 plus 20. So that's going to be 50 now. And spin. That's a 23 red. I believe that's a win. All right. So now, the longest one since it's hit is 23 the middle, the one on the end. So third 12 will be the number to play. And now we're up 16-10. That's a 10. That is a loss. So with the Fibonacci, we just put the 1 and spin. We're just going to rebet and spin. That's a 16 red. All right, that's a loss. So we're going to rebet. And we're going to add this time and spin. That's a 2 black. All right, that's another loss. So we're going to rebet and spin. Oops. Oh, man, I was supposed to increase it. Oh, man. And we got the win, of course. All right, we'll take the win, but we should have increased. But we're going to go back to the 10 on the 29. 2. Okay, so it'll be the second 12 and spin. Yeah, I should have increased. I would have been up another $20. That's a third 26 black. All right, that's a loss. So with the loss, we're just going to rebet and spin. That's a 32 red. That's another loss. All right, so we're going to rebet. And we're going to add 1 and spin. That's a 10 black. All right, that's a loss. So we're going to rebet. And now we're going to add another 10 and spin. That's a 3 red. That's another loss. So with that, we're going to go up to 50. 30 plus 20 is 50 and spin. That's 26 black. That's a loss. All right, so we're just going to rebet. And now we're going to go 50. We're going to go another 30 and spin. That's a 6 black. That's another loss. So with that, we're going to go 80. 80 and... yeah. Now we're going to go up 100 to 110. Because it's 50 plus 80. 80. No, 130. Sorry. We'll go up to 130 and spin. All right, that's a 30 red. That is another loss. So now we're going to go up 130 plus 80. So we're gonna rebet, get back to 130, and then we're gonna increase 80. So let's go 75 and add 5 and spin. Hopefully we get a win here. All right, that's a 31 black. That is a loss. All right, so now we gotta go 210 plus the 130. 210 plus the 130. So let's get that 210 up here and let's add the 130. 100. 10, 20, 30, and spin. Now we're a $340 bet, but we have a lot of ammo now because we made so much money, but 29, that is not a win. So now we're gonna go 340 plus the 210. Now we gotta add the 210. 1, 2, 10, and spin. All right, that's a 0. All right, now we got to add the 330. Shoot, 330 plus the 550. So now we're going to rebet the 550 and we're going to add $330. This is why you walk away when you can. Now we're down to $180. We definitely should walk at this point. That's a 4. That is a loss. So let's go again. We got 880 plus we just played. What was the one before? 550. All right, so we got to rebet and we got to add the 550. Actually, oh geez. All right, now we got to add the 550. So 500. $50. Now we're at $14.30. Now this is where it comes into play if there's table limits. That's a 15. We finally got the win. All right, so that was a $2,860 win. So we definitely are up now. So now we're gonna go back to 10 on the longest since it's hit, which was the third dozen. Whoops, let's clear that out. And let's go back to $10 units and go third 12 and spin. You could also do this with dollar units so that you don't get too much, too crazy. All right, that's an 18, red. All right, that was a loss, I believe. Yeah, because we played the third column, right? Yeah. All right, so let's rebet and spin. That's a 22 black. All right, that's a 22 black, so that's a loss again. So we're gonna rebet, and this time we're gonna increase it to 20 and spin. You'd only be up 214 units if you were playing with dollar units, but it's a lot safer. 16, that's a loss. Rebet, and now we're gonna add the 10 and spin. That's a 6 black. That's another loss. Getting a lot of losses now, guys. All right, so now we're going to rebet. And we got to add 20, 10, 20, and spin. Now we got to add 50 to the next one. Rebet and add 50 if we lose. So now we rebet and add 50. Rebet. And we're going to add, not 50, 30. 30. Spin. All right. That's a $10. 10. That's another loss. So now we do 80 and 50. Rebet. And 50, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and spin. That's a 1 red. That's another loss. So we're gonna rebet, and now we're gonna add 80. 80 and spin. That's an 11 red, black. That's no good. It's another miss. So now we're gonna 100, 25, and 30, and spin. I'm gonna add 130 and spin. That's a 13 red, black. Jeez, we losing big time. All right, so now 340. 150, 75, 80. Does that make any sense? 520. Yeah. All right. Go ahead and spin. I don't know if I messed up. It's a 25 red. Finally got the win. All right. So now we're gonna go back to 10, and the longest since it's hit is the first 12 and spin. Yeah, I'm not sure if I messed up or not. Let me know in the comments below if I did. But yeah, sometimes you mess up. Fibonacci's hard. You gotta write down the numbers before you play. All right, rebet and spin. I should write down the numbers up till like 20 hits or something, 20 losses, so I have all that. All right, I will put that in the description below. I will put the unit size on every one. All right, so now we're just gonna rebet, and now this one we're gonna double and spin. I'll put the units on the bottom of the Fibonacci system, the whole entire system. That's a win. That's $40. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to the 10, and the longest since it's hit would be the third 12 and spin. That's an 11. All right, that's a miss. So we're just gonna rebet and spin. It's our first loss. That's a 29 black. I think we got the win. Okay. So now we're gonna go back to 10, but the longest since it's hit, 29, 11. Okay, so it will be the middle 12 and spin. That's a 23 red. That's a win. All right, so we'll take it. All right, and then we go to the longest since it's hit, 23, 29. So it'll be the first 12 and spin. That's a 13 black. All right, that's a loss. So we're gonna rebet, and we're gonna spin because it's our first loss. Yeah, playing this with dollar units is a lot easier. It's a lot better. Wouldn't have got that high. All right, that's a 20. All right, so that's another loss. So we're gonna rebet, and we're gonna add 10 and spin. Oh, I'm sorry that we won on that last one, so we didn't have to rebet and spin. We didn't have to increase it, but that's okay because we just got a bonus by doing that mistake. All right, so we're gonna go back to the longest since it's hit, which was the 13. Oh, that's it, guys. That's our counter. That's all right. That's the time up. So what we did was we made $2,420 on the Fibonacci system, the Fibonacci roulette strategy. However, don't forget that we did lose our bankroll if we only had $2,000. So we did lose our bankroll, but remember, when in the beginning we were up over $500 before, and we should have cashed out at that point. Of course, if we were playing dollar units, we would have been up 50 units, and those bets wouldn't have went up to $1,000. It would have been more like $100 and something dollars. So that's a good way to stay away from those table limits. But let me know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget, hit that notification bell so you never miss another roulette spin. Thank you, and you guys have a fabulous day.